examining a subject matter on its own merits and test how it stands up to the many possibilities found in reality. All without pre-drawn conclusions found in personal bias. No left or right wings here. No pounding the pulpit of ego-driven my way or the highway attitudes. But there are no free passes given either. Answers to questions are important, but equally important is the reasons and methods used to find the answer. The lack of contradiction is the final judge here on Feet to the Fire. Feet. Sunday evenings. To the... How do you listen? Fire. Check out feettothefireradio.com. Now broadcasting live with archives kept in HD video on our YouTube channel and with high-quality audio only at Spreaker.com. The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium. All right, we are back and we are live. Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James Athayanchik. Black Knight of Talk Radio. EMP. Well, no, it's this way. Got reversed. EMP, we're going to talk in a bit. I was just perusing some of the latest news stories, and I saw somebody share about the not guilty verdict in the Bundy standoff, and I'm like, wow. And I'm looking at the story, and it's this happened in August. And I'm like, okay. Either I heard it and forgot it, which is possible, or I didn't hear it, but it should be all over the place. And so that takes care of that comment, because I'm looking here at the web pages, and as I'm looking at this story, I'm looking at the KATU.com. I'm looking at the story. I'm going, I got no dates. There's no times. There's no this, no that. I started to poke around, but anyway, we are back. This EMP thing, I'm going to get to in a minute. I mean, if you know how EMPs, what they work and what they do and how it works, you can protect yourself against it. In fact, a lot of people don't have to do anything, and they'll be protected because the equipment is. But I'll get to that in a minute. Some of the info here. Let me switch to the YouTube page. Where am I at? No, I need to go to mine. That's right. I put it up there, and now I'm thinking, like, this is not news. So, I don't know. Here's our EMP. Now, a friend of mine is really into movies. He's a big movie buff, directors and producers and all that stuff. And he said that I told him about this open secret that's kind of getting a cold shoulder from Hollywood and whatnot, because of course it exposes Hollywood and the pedophilia and whatnot. And he looked at it and he told me that the director is quite A-list, top shelf director for many other various documentaries. So I'm going to talk to him more about that, and I'll have more information on it. Kennedy files. I didn't put any links up for that. I don't know. I'd like to find out what you guys think on it or whatever, but I'm going to call, I'm going to get in touch with Brian David Anderson, who did a very unique take on the Kennedy assassination. Did it on the show. He gets quite a argument about it, but he's very good at making his cases. I'm going to see if there's anything new that came out that really does anything. I mean, my guess is that it's just going to be a lot of information. Stuff. Whether the stuff actually helps to show that Oswald wasn't a single shooter, if you actually need any more information about it, or about the cover-ups and whatnot behind it. I just don't see it coming out. It sounds like it to me a distraction, I would imagine, is how I would put it, that you're not going to get actually real new information out there. So we'll see on that. I'll put together a show on that. Next week, I have a show I really encourage you to watch. I mean, you could download it or however you want to do it, because Lionel Parkinson is coming back. He's putting together the show right now. Now, he's got several YouTubes already up on our archives, on our YouTube channel, talking about gold, about gold isn't the savings people, the great saving in what's upcoming crash that people think it is. He also talked about how people who have large sums of money can put them into the protection of T-bills, which got a lot of people irate because they, they're looking at the dollar crashing and whatnot. And I would go along with all of that. But Lionel's put a lot of work into it, and he's got some very good points. And the last one was how people can take a small amount of money, $10, literally $10, $15, and buy a share in a EFT, electronic trading fund, that is shorting the market. So if you wanted to short the market, you'd have to put up a lot of money up. It's a big deal. So what this group have done is made a fund you can buy shares in based on the amount of shares there are, divided into the worth of the pot. And right now, because the market's doing so, quote, well, it's on a huge upward shoot, that the fund is low. The fund is like nothing. I mean, how's this working out here? I shouldn't do this. The fund is really low. So you can buy into one of the funds that I actually took his advice, because for $15, you got insurance if the market crashes. I mean, big crash. Like, for example, in the 2008 when it crashed. This is all in that other previous show. I'll put the links below, but I'm building up for next week's show. If you would have had this fund when the stocks crashed in 2008, the fund shot up to $100,000 a piece. And now it's at like $13 because, the markets have gone up into astronomical record territory week after week or whatever. So, this is the deal. The idea is that you buy this fund, and if the market does crash, it will go up. I mean, will it go up to 100,000? I don't know. But it could go up to 10s and 20s and 50,000 based on past performance. I know they say past performance isn't indicative of future gain. That's true. But when it comes to shorting the market and how it works, it could go past it. So go look at that show. If you go to our YouTube channel, which is Black Knight 2012, I think is the name I made. I made it so long ago. Wasn't even doing radio, I think, at the time. And you can go in there and you look up. There's a whole playlist just for Lionel Parkinson. You just scroll down, you'll see it. You can peruse down through it. I really recommend people who only have a few bucks. You can go online to Ameritrade, open an account. It's free. You can you transfer the funds from your bank account. You buy the funds, and it could sit there for eternity. So but anyway, I digress. What he's going to do in this show. I was just talking to him the other day when I was driving, and I said, there's people are ingrained in thinking a certain way because of historically it has happened. And people need to know why the dollar will actually increase in value in a market crash because of its huge debt. It's $20 trillion in debt. The dollar, they're just printing dollars like nothing. How could it be possible? And this is a legitimate question. People ask me, and I go, I don't know, ask Lionel. So we're going to ask Lionel. He's going to set it up and go through it. He's going to go through why he thinks the dollar bill will actually be a haven in a crash, which is against all these people, and why he thinks gold will not be. Now, I'll just say this now, and I'll shut up because next week we'll do the show, but he made a lot of money in gold. He sold everything he owned, house included, and bought gold, and it went up 4 times. I mean, he made a lot of money in it. But he said, and I quote, we'll go into it on the show, that had he known what he known now, he could have made millions of it, using the same market that crashed using these current strategies that he's talking about. So, and he's doing this, he's coming on the air and talking about it just to help people out. He's not a fund manager. It's not nothing to do with him. He's not selling funds, he's not selling newsletters, not selling nothing. The show's free. This show, I'm bringing it free. He's being here free. There's no commercials. I mean, it's at least worth a listen. And, if you don't, fine. But I took his heed, at least in this aspect. And so next week, we're going to have talk with Lionel about why the dollar will be the way to go in a big crash initially. And it's not that you have to have all dollars, but this is an important part of it. So I'll leave it to next week. Also, Bitcoin. Bitcoin, let's see what it is now. Bitcoin, I got my little app here. $6,042. Spiked a little while ago, afternoon at 62.60. Now it's 61.40. Kind of going up and down. There's a split coming. Fork in the blockchain. I don't know all the calculations that go with Bitcoin. They're very elaborate, but I know the principles of it. The blockchain is a way to ensure you have a real Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin number, your passphrase, your key and all that fits into this number. So when you want to buy a Bitcoin, or you want to exchange goods for services using Bitcoin as the conveyor, preserver of value, currency, if you will, when you do go through this, whole thing, you end up verifying it's a Bitcoin. So, and then, and so forth. So they've already did a fork, a couple of them. And also Him.com's talking about Bitcash, which will allow you to, it's not a fork, which will allow you to take your Bitcoin and deposit it, let's say, I'm using generic terms, and then you get these Bitcash that you can buy in goods and services easier because of the length and time for the blockchain to verify. I mean, it may take days to verify it. So, but these forks are coming up. There's some nefarious stuff. If they're not nefarious, what I've come to understand is a fork can be. Because as you're traveling down, look at it as a highway. You're traveling down the highway, and there's a return back on a highway to check the Bitcoin validity. And as you go off the fork, you might not be able to come back onto the standard Bitcoin route. So if anybody out there who's listening, and I'm no expert, but I have my own vision here of how Bitcoin, where it's going and what they're going to do and what things might happen to it along the way, is to keep it on the original blockchain, the legacy, I guess they're calling it legacy Bitcoin now. Keep it on that thing, especially if you're buying it as an investment, because you want to sit on it and see where it goes. If it goes up to 100,000, a million, fine. If it goes to zero, fine. It was a bad investment or what have you. But I think time has shown it's not going down to zero. They're trying to, actually the banks and whatnot, investment firms are trying to buy them. But if they buy them too fast, it shoots the price up. This is where some of the volatility is coming. There's a want for them. There's a demand for them. The price has gone up. So just think, if you had it, you bought it for $500. Where's it going? Going now. And even if you bought it now, it goes up to $50,000 for $6,000. So that would be my advice, is being a non-professional, not even, I'm a Bitcoin owner, buying it for long-term growth. That's what I did. And what I'm doing is I'm keeping it legacy, keeping it regular Bitcoin, no fancy forks and whatnots, so that it goes all the way back to the beginning. Because what could happen along a fork is a problem. Now, these guys are math whizzes who are doing all this stuff, and there's math whizzes who are checking it out for problems. So this is way beyond, I think, our ability to go in and say, well, let me check this out to make sure. And people who don't understand the value of Bitcoin, I'm not going to go into it now, but they don't understand the potential value of this. This is the first time in history this has happened. There's Bitcoin and other cryptos, but Bitcoin being the front one. The first time in history anything has been like this. There's no other precedent. You can't compare it to gold. You can't compare it to precious stones because they're not finite. Bitcoin has a maximum of, I believe it was 26 million issue, once they mine them all, which mathematically, it might never happen to get to the end because the complication of the program gets bigger and bigger. So you have a finite number. Now you take all the quadrillions of dollars in the world and you divide them by 26, you get big numbers. So this is why I'm thinking that provided something doesn't happen, like making them illegal and arrest people who have Bitcoin, which they can't find them unless they announce them. Anyway, let me see. I'm trying to check in the chat room here. I've been paying attention. I've been talking. Just chatting amongst one another. Are there a Joe Silver bar for a suitcase full of veggies or a loaf of bread as opposed to a gold nugget? Yeah, well, that's a good point. When I don't know if it even fits here what I just said, but if you look at when you're buying something, right? What do you need? Food. You need food, water, shelter. Let's call shelter. Make it clothing and a place to live and whatever. You need those three things to live. I mean, unless you're in the tropics, shelter isn't as important, but, and you can get eaten by a wild boar or something. But those are the things you need. Everything else, when it comes down to that bare in the bones, King Midas, listen to that little story. It's a good thing. Those are the things you need. And what all these other things are methods of value so you can obtain those things. And in times of non-crisis, you can have goods, you can have things that aren't necessary to survive, but are let's say, fun or whatever, convenient. Always think about that. Bottom line is, in a pinch, you're going to need to take your purveyor of value, your little contents, whatever it is, gold, Bitcoin, dollars, whatever. You're going to need to take that unit and convert it into food, shelter, clothing. If you want to put shelter, put weaponry or some kind of as a shelter, sheltering you from, you're going to have to convert your currency into, something that is, and you're going to have to look at what is going to hold the value and how easy will it be to exchange it. Those are the things you have to really look at. Of course, I'm not saying nothing. So let's go to EMP. EMPs. Now, let me go to the web pages here because there's a bunch of here we go. Yeah, Clinton uranium one deal. All right. Well, that's another day. We're gonna let that go. And let me switch over to the web page deal. Here we go. So I saw a bunch of articles that came out. I think these were actually today, where you have people like Newsweek. Actually, this is not working on. All right. Do two more comments. All right, The Atlantic. You have Forbes. And then I brought out an old Coast to Coast with Art Bell talking about EMP attacks back in, this is 2008. And then I also have a show I did with Matt Stein on how simple it is to protect the U.S. grid from an EP attack. It costs about $2 to $3 billion, but no one wants to pay for it, so now we're completely wide open for it. So there's a solution to it with current technology that just takes man-hours to actually put up into these poles to protect it, electrical poles. All right, so what I want to do, be a lot of talking here. What I want to do is explain about EMP pulse. EMP pulse is like saying electromagnetic pulse. ATM machine. Automatic transfer machine, whatever it is. But there's basically two ways you can have EMP pulse. EMP, through this. The sun, we've talked with Matt Stein, that show always goes primarily into the sun, creating a particle storm. And as the particle storm comes down onto Earth, the Earth's magnetic field will channel these particles around. That's where you get the northern lights. But if it's strong enough, they get through. So what happens is if you understand how like a motor works, a DC or AC motor, it doesn't matter, or a generator, what's happened is you have a copper wire, you move the wire past through a magnetic field, and it causes the electrons to move. Now, if you have the generator and the wire, you hook it up to a light bulb and you're turning the generator, right? When you unhook one of the sides, the light goes off and you turn the generator, it's pretty easy. When you hook it up, it gets harder. Because what you're doing now is literally forcing the electromagnetic fields to push the electrons, which go through the light, make it on, and so forth. So what you're doing is you're moving the piece of wire through the magnetic field. Now it's rolled up in a ball. They're all wound around each other. So as it's going through the permanent magnets around it, you're creating that current. Because you got so many of them bolt tight, you can create a decent current. And you can also take one wire and do this. And what happened in the shuttle is they did an experiment where they laid out a tether. I think it was a 5-mile cable, wire cable, and they were trying to think about using this principle. This cable would be running across the Earth's electromagnetic field, and they would be moving the cable with them. Over here, moving the cable with them. So now you have this cable is 5 miles long, which would make a pretty big motor if you wound all in the settings, and you're just moving it through the magnetic field. What's happened is the magnetic field in the Earth is starting to move particles. But you also have the sun out there above the atmosphere, shining particles on it too. So as these particles hit the copper wire, they start to current. Well, their calculations were off, because what happened is when they laid that cable out, it started to glow. I wonder if I can even find this quickly. Didn't even think. Trying to find out I want to get a picture, and without going through watching all kinds of videos and stuff. Yeah, all right, here we go. Let me go to this then. Web page. Here's some of these pictures when they laid the tether out. You see it glowing? Oh, that's what happened. The thing got overloaded with the current that it turned red hot immediately. So, they had to cut it loose, and it glowed as it flowed away. You could see it in this bottom one here. Let me see if I can get this picture. There it is glowing. So the idea is that when you have these particles moving over wires, in particular, I mean, it could actually, wire is relative, because you can have a thick cable if the particle can overload it. So that's the principle. What the sun does is send these things out. They're screened out by our magnetic sphere, but if it's big enough, it gets through, and it starts to move. As of course, the Earth is moving as well. You have all these things, and it starts to overload these wires. Now, you have all these wires strung out across the United States, across the world. What happens is these particles hit the wire and start a current along the wire, and then it glows like the shuttle wire here. Yeah, it happened back, I think it was 1908. Give me a year or two either way, when they had a solar flare. But back then, they had telephone wires were just coming out. So there was no big infrastructure, no satellites, no big stuff. And these wires did burn down. So if we had something of similar magnitude from the sun, as we did back then, we'd have trouble. Now enters the EMP pulse bombs, or weapons, as they're called. Let's see if I got a picture of these. A lot of these are, some of those are actual weapons they can use. Some of them are artist conceptions, and they're, fun pictures or what have you. But before this, there's another one. Yeah, I like this picture. This is a good picture. I shouldn't have hit that. Go back here. View image. That's what I want to do. This is a good artist rendition of what would happen if we had incoming. Now, I don't know about all this stuff up in the air, but if we had incoming particles. This is the overloading of all the power lines. Now, just imagine this going across the whole United States, or a very large portion of it, depending upon how high the weapon would be and where it's positioned. And also, of course, the sun would blanket the whole earth with it. But these things would glow and they fall down. Now, it would take decades to replenish this because it's all aluminum, and aluminum, copper, some are stainless steel, depending on the load. And it would take decades to repair this stuff. So we would be without, just like what we had the recent storms. People have been out in Puerto Rico. They've been out for weeks and weeks. In fact, I don't even know if they're back yet. It's been months. So months, probably a couple. So if this were to happen, you got nothing. All right, that's just the power grid. A lot of people probably notice already. They're going, yeah. Okay, well, I'm doing this because everybody might want a quick primer on this. So now you bring in the satellites, which control a bunch of stuff. And now the idea is a lot of them are hardened against EMP. And let me explain how that works. It's not really that hard. In fact, a lot of your devices are already shielded because they don't want to have your TV effect. I don't know if that matters or not because no one really uses TV the analog's gone, so I don't know. I don't have a digital antenna, so I don't know if it would work the same. But some of these devices, especially if you buy the, couple years, 2000 some devices, they'll have a caging inside the computer, which is a Faraday cage, which will trap the particles in the cage, and it's grounded, so then it will go to ground. The particles, all electricity and all that wants to go to ground. So if you have a open door and says this way to ground, the particles will like that. Again, if it's a super concentrated, stun will still get through. But a lot of your stuff is already protected. I mean, if you have an item that's covered with a metal skin and you ground that metal skin, you are essentially protected against a EMP attack, sun, weapons, or whatever otherwise. It depends on the amount of the particles. And so the EMP attack, if it was going to be done by a state or terrorist or what have you, would be up high enough to try and knock out the power grid. I mean, that's like the goal. Now, the satellites might be too high for an EMP. Of course, the EMP does go up and down, not just down. But depending upon how high it is, how powerful it is, and you can use a dirty nuke will do the job. I mean, a good old-fashioned nuke doesn't have to be the super nukes that can wipe out, 1,000 cities and everything. So if one of the first fear from North Korea was they put up a satellite. And the satellite, I saw it, I had to laugh because it looked like a refrigerator that they put solar panels on. I mean, I'm telling you, let's see if I can look it up. It's almost ridiculous. Where's these? A lot of you might have seen this stuff already, so I don't know if I'm doing you guys doing any service. They're not really showing it here. There it is. There's the North Korean satellite. I mean, hey, I shouldn't laugh. I couldn't build it, all right? But the idea is that it was basically a box. And those are the solar panels. And it shot up into low Earth orbit. So now what people were afraid of was inside this box. Actually, I saw a different one. It was a little taller. Yeah, maybe that was it. In a while. I just remember seeing it being a box. The worry was that inside that little refrigerator was a small nuclear device. And the orbit took it on a corkscrew path that was flying over the Earth, and it was going over the U.S. It was coming like this way. It would go over, say New York, and then to be, Ohio, and then whatever. And it was going across in low orbit, and they were losing tracking of it. And so what they were worried about is it would detonate. I don't have to talk here. Now I'm never going to say it. It would blow up. How's that? Ignite? over the U.S. No, which it didn't. Well, can't believe you were showing your search history. Why is that? Oh, I don't know. Is that I don't know. Is that a security risk or unprofessional or what's the deal here? But anyway, so the big hoopla in the news, going back to this page, is going back to this page is the could North Korea an electromagnetic pulse attack really cause mass starvation and social collapse? Well, forget North Korea. If a an electromagnetic pulse over the U.S. or anywhere for that matter ignites, it could burn out the infrastructure at least because it would overload the power wires. And and the U.S. decided that it wasn't worth putting in some kind of security and shaking. So what you have to ask is, does it have to be North Korea? Now, North Korea is a good cover, right? North Korea, and if it happens, well, we can blame North Korea, and then they can nuke North Korea, and on World War III, and everything is going on. It doesn't have to be North Korea to do this. I don't know what's going on with with North Korea, with Kim Jong-un, is that he's giving plenty of plausible denial for a false flag here. He's allowing, by putting this stuff up, swearing he's going to do it, saying he's going to do it, stamping his feet, he's allowing the United States, Russia, China, or I don't know, or any other country or organization, including internal the false flag people, to be able to send up a pulse, have a pulse go off and blame North Korea. The guy's already telling him he wants to do it. So they already got a patsy, or whether he does it or not, he's the patsy or the guy's been manipulated into doing it. I don't think he can do it at all. But what's going to happen? If it does happen, they got this fall guy already, and now they could choose where to place it. If it's a foreign government, say China for that matter, could be handing this stuff to North Korea, because China is really the biggest. Let me say it's the enemy. China's the biggest threat to the U.S. over. I'm getting my texts here. Good old Ron Roman Tolman likes to do this. So, what I'm looking at is I don't think North Korea is going to do anything. I think he wants to sit at the table with the big boys, and nuclear weapons is your key. And that goes for any planet, anywhere. And I wasn't using big boys. That's the thing nowadays. There's nuclear power or not. So I think that's pretty simple there, but it gives a big where to go on it. So a lot of people have been talking about these getting ready for an EMP, buying food, buying all that. And it's because they're making a living at it. Now, that's fine, because that's good to have. People they have a savings account, right? Well, in the old days, that may have been good enough. So now the savings can be confiscated because of Dodd-Frank's. This is the digital savings. This is the digital money in the bank can be confiscated because when you put your money in the bank, you're giving the bank an unsecured loan of your money. They are in charge of it, just like the other way around. If you get cash advance on your credit card, it's an unsecured loan, and you spend the money the way you want to. This is what the bank is doing with your money. And so used to be put it in a bank. Then it was, you have some cash at home, yes, and then you have various investments. When it comes to an EMP, you're not going to, if it is successful, knocks out the grid, at least you won't have power. That means generators. Generators are going to, if you have a solar generator, it's a limited power. Unless you're rich, it doesn't matter because you could buy all the best. But you can have a limited power with the solar generator. And then you might have cloudy days. You won't have enough. It depends how big your battery system, how big your panels are. Windmills as well. Gasoline generators. You got to have a whole lot of gasoline. You can hook it up to a natural gas generator, and they have their own system to pump the gas. So if the electricity goes out, they have their own methods to pump the gas, but somewhere along the line they're using electricity, and I don't think they'll be able to produce it. Gas is going to have its problems. You can have a big petroleum tank in your backyard, but it is finite. I read the book Under the Dome by Stephen King, and when the big dome came over there, that's what they were doing. They were using these big tank, not petroleum, I just said it before, LP, liquid petroleum, or propane. And so when they ran out, they ran out. So these are the things is that I don't understand. I mean, you can prepare for a short-term problem, but if it's going to go on for months or years, you're back to cooking with campfire, you know, and in the winter and no heat and, you know. So also you think that the powers that be and all that, if they do want to pull something off, like a deep state operation or whatever you want to call it, if they do want to do that, and they're going to blame Korea or whatever it is, they're part of the grid. I mean, yeah, like the Pentagon maybe can have their own deal or whatever and these type of things, but you go up and down the street to commerce and banking, because banking depends on commerce. All those commerce things are part of the grid too. And I don't know how prepared they are in terms of long term. No. So this is why I personally am thinking this will not happen, because they would be cutting off their face, you know, to spite their arm or something like that. I don't know what the nose to spite your face. I forgot the. But in order to do this, they would have to be case hardened with an alternative power supply, all well and planned. And while the deep state government may have these things in underground facilities that you know that we are all aware of, to be able to actually go and do this on a mass scale and withstand against it. What I find is a lot of people tend to believe in the way that they want to go. For example, if I was talking about this with somebody who listens to the mainstream media, that's their source, they would say I'm paranoid. Oh, it's not going to happen. Come on, doesn't get out of here with this and all that other stuff. So what will happen is they're going to believe toward that goal. And evidence that I put up is going to be poo-pooed. And likewise, just people who have been ready for the crash. I'm going to say this, hoping for the crash, whether they can go like, nah, I told you so, or whether they are looking to survive into the next layer and thin out. I mean, whatever the reasons are. So they're going to tend to believe that way. And one of the problems I have is I don't want to believe anything. I want to look down and say, here's the data, whether it be past, science, whatever, and so on. And when I look at this, while it is very possible, North Korea can do EMP, China can do it, Russia can do it, probably anybody who's got a nuclear weapon can do it. And China could be feeding, China could be using North Korea for their own purposes as well, giving a show of, no, don't do that, and then winking for whatever their purpose is. And there's a big buildup over there, and that worries me. But it's also all these ships are being taken away from the United States. So the United States is less protected. And, of course, there are people who say they have super weapons they've never used. Maybe they do. I just see that when I see a lot of stuff taking part in this, a lot of looking in the past, the U.S. has screwed up a lot in their military tests and trials and whatnot. So it's hard to say for someone to sit down and come out and say it, but you got to look at it this way. The reason why I don't get too wiggly about trying to prove stuff right or wrong, you know, as I said right now, yeah, it's possible, but there's a big cost involved for everybody, even the big boys, if it goes down. But I don't say it's not going to happen, because there is a good thing in this, whether it be listening to Lionel, whether it be listening to Planet X people, whether it be talking about the nuclear war or EMP. All of these worldviews have one good thing in common, and that's getting yourself self-sufficient. You've got a store. You can have a store 6 months of food, water, or access to water. I got a river down the street, and I got a lot of Jim McKinney's filters, so I could go down there, pre-filter it through some cloth, and then run it through the filters, and the water would be totally drinkable. He's even got an add-on thing that you would take out radiation. So you might want to go to his site to check this stuff out. So, I mean, I got a water supply. I put together some storable foods. I thought about buying a bunch of canned foods, but they're, you can open up, you can get a bad one here and there. But you don't have to go out and buy fancy things. I'm a friend of mine, Frank, who's into a lot of saving money and whatnot. You can buy a whole lot of the, what's that soup? The noodles. You boil the water and you put the pack in. Ramen noodles. You can get some beans and ramen noodles and last a long time. And if you go watch the old Army movies, they're all eating cans of beans, So it doesn't mean you got to come up with some kind of fancy storable food for 30 years and all this stuff. You can even take and buy beans, buy the 50-pound sack, and get Kevlar linings. They sell them in 5-pound buckets and put it in there and drop some dry ice at the bottom of it and let the dry ice, which is heavy, push all the oxygen out, or a very good portion of it. Stick one of those little oxygen accept packs in the top, seal it up and close it up, and you're pretty good. That could last years and years and years and years and years. Not done real professionally, but it's done like, it works. And so, the idea is that, plus get cash and keep cash in hand. Cash. Because if you have gold, that's great. You got to find some place to sell it. And if you're in the rural regions, I have a friend and listener who can exchange in Idaho. He can exchange gold because they're more use for it. But I'm telling you, where I live, unless you go to a gold and silver place, you can't go into Walmart with gold. But you can go in there with cash. And oddly enough, a lot of Walmarts are putting Bitcoin ATMs in there. But again, you're still dealing electronics, so they could be shut down. Once they're emptied, they're done. Because cash will be king. Because if you go into Walmart and you got dollar bills, and they got to move that stuff before it spoils, they might make you a deal. The dollar bill will actually rise in there. So, I mean, this is all short-term stuff that people should have online just in case. I mean, look at a tornado. If you have it underground and your whole neighborhood's wiped out, I mean, you got food wherever you want to stay, if you can stay somewhere or whatever. Or hurricane's even a better example because you got a wide range of people destroyed. So, actually, a lot of this EMP stuff, to me, is all... I didn't have a show from Visible. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, he couldn't do a show. I didn't hear from him. All right, because I mentioned JFK, and I got a link from David, who did some talking about it. So I'll post that. Paul Card Roberts, I'll post that. And he talked about the Carrington event. Oh, it was 1859? That's right, because it was a telegraph. Oh, I know what I'm thinking. 1902, or that was a earthquake. That was the New Madrid Fault earthquake. That's why I got mixed up. Okay, so 1859 was the Carrington event. Thanks, Dave. That's the one where they burned out the telegraph wires. Okay, so we got that corrected. I'm glad people... I have to look, but I'm glad people... glad people are sending the stuff. It's a group event. It's a group deal here. I'm not sitting up there some kind of know-it-all. I mean, I can dispel those. Just listen to me for a while. I'll dispel that real quick. But it's a group event, and I'm sharing the knowledge I have, and the guests I have on the show share the knowledge they have, and then the listeners as well. They're going to town in the chat room, talking about this stuff. So, EMP... if you want to protect an item that you have, of course, if you say, I'll protect my phone, well, when you take it out after the pulse and you protected it, all the towers will be non-functional. But you could still have it in the event you can find something that's working. Now, some of these may be protected to some degree. So there may be, it may come out where it hits spots. Depends how powerful it is. Because if you have a lot of protons and electrons flying around, because it creates the ions, both positive and negative, and you have this stuff going around, the various things will be attracted to it. And how it would work if it burns on a wire, you say, well, how would it mess up a computer? Is that it would fry the chips as it goes through the chips looking for ground at that circuit. I mean, these chips are running at like 1.5 volts or whatever it is. I think it's 5 volts, but then some of the subroutine chips are like 1.2 volts is what it's running at with microamps, real sensitive stuff. And that's like going up to your ear with, I don't know, trying to think of a valley. I mean, with a bullhorn at full volume right up to your ear and yelling in your ear. I mean, it's an intricate system and it can't take it. But for the sound might not be a great example because sound can pass through these things. But if you set up a barrier around it, the metal Faraday cage will catch those because it wants to go do something. You know, it's coming here as an ion, it's coming fast, boom, it hits the metal. The cage will bring it around. The cage, it goes out around the electronic device so that the electrons, protons, the ions that come in, hit it and go around and go to ground so it doesn't hit the item in the middle of it. You can create Faraday cages. They're not very hard. I mean, a crude one, you can take screens that you would use for your, I got to turn this down. Old Randy boy. You can put screens around stuff. Put a couple layers of screens, and as they will hit it and ground it. Now, I talked to an engineer about building a Faraday cage around my bed so you could sleep underneath and you wouldn't get all the cell phones and all that. You don't even have wireless in your own house. The guy next door does, and it doesn't matter. You try to turn your little computer on and look for a signal, and there's like 30. Well, all right, maybe 12. Got a little carried away there. So you can build a Faraday cage around it. And I talked to an engineer, and he said, why would you ground it? I said, well, for the particles, where they could go. He says, well, you know, it works the other way, too. If the Earth is actually sending off a charge that way, your Faraday cage would become an antenna, and it would send out the radiation through the cage. And I thought, it's interesting. But there's two ways to do it with two different methods for two different reasons. What he's talking about in the Faraday cage with radio and so on is that the cages will catch the radiation as it has a amplitude. Depending on the hole size, as an amplitude, it'll catch the radiation. Some will get through, but some percentage, say 30%, gets through. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Each layer absorbs 30%. That's what it was. So at the end, 10 or less than 10 would get through with 3 layers of this. But what happens is the actual netting or the metal netting will catch that radiation and it'll radiate it as infrared heat, in other words. So it downgrades the radiation so that it goes from the microwave down. And and you could see what happened to that tether is when the tether got it radiated as infrared, all right. You know, that's why it was glowing. So there are many ways you can do this. And if you're me, I'm kind of like the guy I want to know how to do it in full ground and so on. You can actually look up these things easily on the web. It's got everything, right? So you can make your own Faraday cages and shields, which are basically kind of two different things, while the end result would be similar. And same things in sound. You can be soundproof, or you can be sound absorbing. So ideally, what you have in your sound room, like I got. I'm not going to turn a camera up this. Well, maybe I can do this. Let's see if this will work. Remote cam. See, this is live, huh? Live fun. Remote cam. Boom. Oh, there we go. See, in the studio, I got all these sound panels up on the ceiling in the air around, up above me. And those things absorb the sound. It's not soundproof. It's sound absorbing. But when you're in a soundproof room, you hear nothing. So, like, I could talk to you, and I could turn my head, and you don't hear nothing. Because there's so much sound absorption that it proofs any sound from getting out or in. But you could just, and the same thing with this, you don't have to proof it to save your items. So you'll be able to use them afterwards. It might take 10 years to be able to plug them in again, but of course, if you charge your own solar cells, you can charge your own. You can still use your computers, whether or not you can connect them. You can turn around and you could make the cage absorb it and dissipate it. And of course, in heat, you do the tether deal. That's why I want to ground it. And you can also have a shielding, which is made to reflect it. And so that's why I'm saying these things, that if you do, if you do want to make some place, a cabinet, you can put layers of metal in between everything. If you isolate them, too, that causes them to radiate. But remember, I don't know how much you're dealing with the radiation. Also, if you have a car, people say your cars will die. Well, they could. But the car is metal. Well, at least most of them are. So you might be able to make a grounding strip where you can ground your car, and your computers are protected. They are hardened to some degree. I mean, they're not hardened against the EMP attack or a super solar storm, guaranteed event. But every little bit would help. Now, it depends that after the attack or the storm happens, what's left afterwards. And if you see the wires all falling down, you're going to be on your own for quite a while. So this is why I think it's wise, whether it's Planet X, whether it's whatever you want to call it. They all have things in common. Get yourself prepared. Because even if it's a weekend, because of a storm or something, you're fine, So this is where it comes in. But the EMP pulse, I think, first of all, the EMP attack, in its pure nature, in other words, Korea attacking the United States, I don't think that's going to happen. In some kind of nefarious nature, whether there's other governments sneaking in and doing it, or other nefarious organizations, like Smirch, what was that, Thrush? No, that was Man from U.N.C.L.E. What was the, the most popular one, James Brown, I can't even think of it. If there's some kind of nefarious Soros organization willing to do this, and they pull it off, you can get that's more likely than I think Korea unilaterally deciding to attack and be successful, because the United States has been doing missiles now forever, and they've been spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, unless they're building their own spaceship to go to another planet or whatever. They should be able to knock down. I mean, Korea is not top shelf. Russia, on the other hand, no chance. The United States attacks Russia or vice versa, there's no chance. We're all dead. Or maimed or whatever. But so I think there's no chance of North Korea, no realistic chance, unless they're getting help from China. So China's nefariously doing it through North Korea. North Korea could be used as the patsy for other countries or nefarious organizations, or even the deep state wanting to do some kind of territorial stuff. If they want to knock out a certain part, if they have a EMP device, a certain height, a certain power, they can knock out a certain part. That, to me, is more likely, if one is to happen, than if it was an attack by... But that's what you're going to see. If you notice all these... I can go back to this. I don't have much time here. I have to actually leave someone early tomorrow. I'm not happy about that. I'm going to have a talk with somebody. But if I can go back to... web page. You notice this is Newsweek, Forbes, and there was a few, NPR. There's a few other ones. There was a bunch of them. I didn't bother to record them all. They're all mainstream media talking about this stuff. Now, EMP devices, again, I got an Art Bell from 2008 in there, and I'm sure it goes back farther. This has been around for a long time. Why is the mainstream doing it now? That's where you can get into your false flag or scenarios, because they can take out a grid. They can even take out the grid by cutting it down. Because now, if you remember stories a while ago, they've now got this smart grid stuff, which is supposed to automatically shift now instead of actually I don't know if it's implemented all the way yet, but human beings had to move this stuff around, and they had to make decisions. And now you can have the grids shut off and blame North Korea for it. Because the pulse doesn't have to be a giant thing. The U.S. could just send up something and have it blow up a little bit in there, and that'd be good enough. Because it's not about, like the neutron bomb, it's not about how big the bomb is. It's about, in the neutron bomb, how intense the radiation. It just melts all living beings and leaves the buildings. Great, right? But the EMP will keep, will stop the communication between human beings. I'm thinking of the internet being the big, otherwise we would have been over. If it wasn't for the internet, we would have known anything about this last election. They could have just done anything they want, but the internet allows information to flow freely or semi-freely. And so what I would think would be, if this is a deep state organization, the fires like in California, I'm going to get conspiratorial deep state stuff here. If it is planned, it could be, right? I'm not making fun here. It could be. If it is planned, they will be doing things that are going to be explainable. The fires in California are very odd to me. I'm looking at pictures of a fire that blew through and disintegrated. I mean, I'm looking at the picture. It looks like whole city blocks to the horizon are everything. I mean, the bricks are the foundations are crumbling, and these houses are devastated with almost nothing left. And in fact, I noticed some of the stuff, like they have bikes, and they reminded me of the 9/11 because you have the cars that were on fire on top. Some of the stuff, like some of the metal stuff, was okay. Some of it, you know. This houses are devastated, and yet there's a green tree sitting in the yard, the very yard of the house that got burned down. So how does this wildfire come in there and disintegrate the houses and not the trees? I mean, not all the trees were good, but I'm looking at in this picture of square blocks of green trees. So, you know, maybe someone who can tell me how wildfires work and how trees have, you know, they have water, and so there's some kind of, you know, the fires came in. I don't know. I got a pretty logical brain. I'm into science and math a little bit and stuff, and I don't see it. So if you want to have, say, California is vulnerable with the fires, you can come up with a story that they're in a forest fire. Then another area gets hurricanes. Now, we know, and ask James McKinney about that, they can, whether they can create a hurricane, I don't particularly believe they can. I think they can possibly help route it by changing path to make it go areas. That's probably where the best limit is. But and I don't know if they can add. I mean, people just say this stuff. Well, you can add energy from space with lasers. Well, how? I mean, you can't just say stuff like that and have it be fact. It's got to be mechanized, and you can watch how it goes and so on. But they might be able to. So if you look now, what's going on? You have hurricane hitting the south. They haven't hit the south in, I don't know, 11 years, give or take, of this magnitude. And I don't know how many have done it this time in a row. You have the sun, for all practical purposes, sleeping like a baby. It gives off a burp here and there. And then we had one a little while ago that was pretty decent. So now you got fires in California that are unbelievable devastation, and of a magnitude that destroys entire city blocks and leaves the trees. Now you have the so-called Antifa stuff coming up next week. I guess we'll find out about that. You have the mass shooting in Texas. You know, all these things, to me, if you want to string them together, they can fit, not forced, into a deep state fighting against the people, because the people voted in Trump, who was an outsider. Forget Trump, the name, just a body. They put the body in from the outside who was fighting against what they want. And so they thought they devastated the people enough, drugged them, gave them phony food. You got videos, you know, videos that are mesmerizing the kids, music. You got movies that are all movies and TV who are training them what to do. And it didn't work. And they're stunned by this. They're shocked by this. What? And so now this is, and they tried, well, we can get Trump to play our game. Well, he may a little bit here and there. He's a businessman. He's not going to bang his head against a wall. He's going to move to a different wall. He's going to try different things. And so, to me, if I had to come up with a quick scenario other than happenstance, which is also possible, I'd have to go with this is some kind of a deep state deal going on. Now, and if you want to toss in aliens and all that, there's other layers you can bring in. But I'm just trying to, when I try to say stuff, I try to say it like, I'm using the word conservative, but I'm saying it in the sense of more likely. I guess I heard somebody describe truth as a percentage of probability. Like the higher the percentage of probability, closer to truth you are. And I kind of like that. So kind of what I would say is that the likelihood of probability, I want to go and try to come up with something I think is more likely versus something that's less likely, and they're all possible. So that's kind of where I go. And when people say stuff, I need to have something to go with it. It's not that something personal. I mean, as some people think that what do you think I would lie? You don't trust me? I don't want to trust anybody. I don't want to believe anybody. Nothing personal. I don't expect you to believe me. Right? But we can come up with things that are reasonable and logical, and that probability of, well, anything can happen anytime. Guys could open and Jesus could come down. No problems. That'd be fine with me. But going through the likelihood of probability, this is where I'm coming from. And the stuff, all my equipment stuff here, this is nothing new. This whole idea, let me go back to my little portable cam here. I don't like this idea. And you look at all the equipment I got here. See, this is I'm not really in front of lightning. All this stuff is metal. They did that for a reason, and the reason being is to protect it from radio frequencies. Now, I understand that I understand that all this stuff, I don't know how to do. It's grounded, but I don't know how to do against an EMP. But this is the idea of it. We got into this plastic world. Now, so the first plastic computers had metal inside. You open it up and see metal inside for that same very reason. What am I doing here? Yes, James Spann. What? Oh. Yeah, there's a spam guy in there. I can do this. Here we go. All right. Last week there was a guy spamming in the chat room, but I wasn't even my own moderator. So I did something after the show to do that. Okay. Gotcha. So this is what I guess I'm pretty much done here. I mean, this is what I wanted to say. There are methods. You can look them up on the web. I just overviewed them. You can make your own kind of EMP protection depending upon how much you want to do it. Have a hobbyist or whatever. There's already EMP protection built in by virtue of radio protection. It's just that how strong is the EMP and how sensitive is the casing that's meant to bring it around. So, in summary, the EMP pulse is not as big a deal because I think the way it's being presented, unless some kind of a nefarious thing is happening, Korea's not going to do it. I mean, they say this guy's crazy. I don't think he's crazy. He's just, he's just a dictator. He wants to be in the table with the big guys, and it's being spun by the media here that he's crazy. He's going to do this, do that, to get the people ready if there's a war. But you're dealing with China, who's not thrilled about having a war, especially a nuclear one, like next door. They're already upset because some of the missiles we use for defense can also be used for offense and have radar capabilities to peek into China. Why would a little peek-a-woo into China? But they're not happy. Yeah, I guess I'll probably have to get moderators in the room. Yeah, that's what happens. So I think that's it. I don't know if there's any other questions in the chat room. I did have I didn't mention it, but I did have the Feet to Fire Skype on. When I don't have a guest, I can take questions on here. It is, or comments. The Skype number is feet, the number 2 fire, feet to fire. And that's a way to get a hold of me on air. Like if I'm talking with a guest and he's on Skype, I don't like to do that because you can't, like, you got to have 2 different Skypes. I can run it in another computer, add it to the board, but all that. I really don't get a lot of people calling live. It doesn't really happen that much anymore. I mean, unless you have millions of listeners or hundreds of thousands of listeners, because people like to listen to them at their own leisure. I mean, there's videos there with 10,000 views, but there wasn't 10,000 people watching it when it came out. But over the time, it catches on. But these things are possible. I do have a phone number, 888-863-2722. That would be a preferred way if you want to call, because then I could put you on hold. This way, I'm not going to do it now, guys. There's people offering to be regulars who offer to be moderator. I'll look into it because I'm not going to do it right this second. Hey, I mentioned next week, Lionel. Please listen to this show next week for your own information. You don't believe it? Fine. You don't accept it? Fine. Listen to it. Listen to the logic involved in it. Watch it again. And listen live, of course. It's immediately up to watch. In fact, if you tune in the show late, you can go back and watch it from the beginning right now. So I make it as easy as possible, and it's as free as possible to be able to do this. Though, of course, I do have a Patreon page, and I would appreciate people who want to patronize me. Is that the right word? Patronize me? And YouTube and Bitcoin. If you would like to donate cryptos, I got a few of them on there. It's on the website, feedthefireradio.com. And how you can look in the bottom side, how you can help. You can help by spreading the word. You can help by liking the video. You can help by sharing the video. You can, that's if you like it. If you don't like it, then don't. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking to do. I'm not looking to build some kind of a big organizational legacy landmark. This is what I like to do, and someday I hope to retire, and this is what I'll be doing full time. So help the retirement fund. Grow Bitcoins. Anyway, so that pretty much sums it up on the EMP. It's kind of uneventful. Like a lot of the shows are shows. Oh my God, this is the most important broadcast that I've done to date. And they do all this stuff, and you listen to them, and I hear and I go, I don't hear nothing. But this is kind of more of a down to earth version. I want to keep it open to anything, but not get hysterical. So anyway, all right, I said so enough. I'm tired of that. So we're going to go. I just said it again. So next week, Lionel. And then I'm thinking the week after that, we're going to have Dr. Rita Louise. I forgot what, I think she said in a couple weeks she'd be available. She got things she's doing. But I want to talk to her about, like, I will say the third eye and about the stuff I was seeing in the hospital, the little critters walking around, that kind of thing. Plus, whatever. She's working on all kinds of stuff, has excellent books out. And whatever she's working on, she's got some stuff that she'll toss in there. So there should be a good talk. I haven't been on her show in a long time. Used to be on every week. Used to do a Soul Healer Moment, which still are available on her website, which is soulhealer.com, Dr. Rita Louise. And we'll have to have Jim back every month, maybe every 6 weeks, whatever it is. I have Jim Schultz, is a friend of mine who's a psychic. Now, it's not like the normal psychic stuff that you hear, because I don't even like doing it on the radio. I don't like hearing it. I don't like doing it. But we kick around stuff because he's not online. He doesn't have computers. I mean, he's got a computer, not online at all. So I like to talk to him about stuff because he doesn't have the online. Yeah, there's no Visible tonight. I just got an email from Viz. His equipment was messing up, so he didn't have it. So we're going to have her on to talk about these items, and maybe next week, Les Visible will be back again. I also want to mention freejack.tv. It is a streaming media, Roku or Amazon or whatever to fire, or a channel. And it features Feet to the Fire. So, and plus a lot of other stuff. Clive Lewis and all kinds of other people are up there. So if you want to watch on your TV and you got a streaming player, you can also watch, of course, on the computer as well. So freejack.tv as well. I think that's going to sum it up for me. I have to get going. Got to get to bed so I can work for the man. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next week.